Do you all know that that is what this is called? This is koliva. When you go into the social hall, have you ever gotten the little tray that has, or the little cup that has some grain with some raisins, and it's very sweet and usually very tasty? This is how it starts. No. Where have you been all your life? It's called koliva. And what it is simply is grain, raw grain, that is soaked in water until it becomes soft, and then it is drained so that it isn't soggy, hopefully. And then it has nuts and some honey and some raisins or pomegranates all mixed in, and then it is put together, and sugar is put on top, and you see that you have letters written there as well, because the letters are for the names of the person that is being commemorated. Now, usually I guess I'm the only one, me and the ones who make it in the parish council, who destroy it, because that's their job, to take it out of the tray and put it in the little cups for everybody. Usually we are the only people who see it like this. But this is what we bless. And I'm going to go put it back, and then we'll talk about it. Can everybody more or less see? I don't want to tip it lest I, dump it in somebody's lap. That would be bad. So, but at least the young ones of you can see. It's got the white sugar on top, but underneath it's the grain. And then on the top of it, there is a cross made with these little candies. All right? Now, why in the world do we do this? Does anybody know? Why do we make koliva? Well, first, when do we make koliva? Okay, let's try something different. Who do we make the koliva for? A person who died. You don't make koliva for the living. You make koliva for someone that you love who's died. And you make it to remember them. Do you know when we try to remember the dead? Well, it depends how close we were to them. But if we're remembering them on every opportunity, then we remember them 9 days after they died, and 40 days after they died, and 3 months, and 6 months, and 9 months, and a year after they died, and then every year afterwards we remember them. And each time we can make the koliva. Now, we don't have to make it all of these times. Some people will say, you have to make it every single time. If you really love them, you'll make it every... That gets a little bit difficult. We make it for our sake, as a way of remembering them, because we love them. And it takes a lot of work, too. You have to plan a few days in advance, because you can't just make a grain of wheat be soaked in 5 minutes. You could microwave it, but Yayadis, does that work? Can you make koliva by microwaving wheat in water? Ohi. Tralo so papa. Right. You can't rush it. It takes time. It takes work. It takes care. And all of the time that you're doing that, when you're not doing what you otherwise might have been doing, you're remembering the one who died. You're praying for them. You're praying that they may find rest in paradise, in the presence of the Lord, in the bosom of Abraham. And you're asking them to pray for you. So all the time you're working to make the koliva, you're remembering them. You're with them. And that's a good thing, right? Because, let's review. When someone who is a Christian dies, where do they go? To heaven, we say, but it's a little bit more complicated than that. Because what are you? What are you made up of? a body, and what? A soul. So which one is you? That's my son. He's heard me talk about this before. You are not either the soul or the body. Each of us is both. This is how we are made. We are made to be both spiritual and physical. This is why death is bad, because it is the separation of what was intended to always be together. This is why we grieve the death of the departed. So, when they're dead, the body is buried. It goes into the ground. The soul goes, we usually say heaven, but more specifically, the place where the souls of the righteous go is paradise. So paradiso, into the bosom of Abraham, the father of all nations, who embraces those who are waiting for the resurrection. Because if we're supposed to be both soul and body, then our soul isn't perfectly happy and content and done and perfect in paradise, right? The soul is waiting for something. It's waiting for the resurrection. It's waiting for Christ to raise up the body and put the soul back together with the body and make them perfect. Make us perfect. And that's why we use grain. Because what do you do with grain if you're not soaking it in water and mixing it together with sugar and nuts and raisins and covering it with sugar and eating it? What do you normally do with grain? You make bread, but you plant it in the ground so that it grows. So we remember when we make the koliva, when we eat that grain that we have so carefully prepared, we remember the loved one that we have planted in the ground, because we expect that they too will grow, that we will see a new life come. Not soon, probably, but someday, on the day of the resurrection, the Lord will take what we planted and will make it into a glorious, new, renewed, perfect person. Okay? So that's what's going on with the grain. That's why we do it. That's who we do it for. And the when we do it is because that's when we need to do it. The church has had people in it for hundreds of years, thousands of years. It knows how we need to grieve, that the 9 days is a big deal, that the 40 days is a big deal, that the 3 months and 6 months and 9 months and a year are a big deal for us. These are the milestones of the biggest change that we know, of a loss of someone that we loved. And it's a time for us to remember them, to pray for them, and to ask them to pray for us. So that's why we do the koliva. And so we have 3 families here, and they're all gathered here on the right side, and they've each brought koliva for a loved one that has fallen asleep. So all of you kids, you won't be here for it, but no, in the church, everybody else is praying for the souls of those who have passed away, who have fallen asleep in the Lord, and we ask them to pray for us. And when you eat the koliva in the hall, remember that. And if you want, look in the bulletin, see who we did the memorial for, and say a prayer for them as you eat it. All right? Now, one of these days, maybe we'll make koliva for somebody. Maybe for Father Henry, because he was a good priest and he was with us for a while. Okay? So, are we clear? Koliva is what we do for those who have died in the hope of the resurrection, because we're not intended to always be dead up in heaven. We're intended to be resurrected here on earth. This is what we hope for. This is what Christ has promised. This is why we celebrate Easter the way we do. So let's stand and come and take communion.